Good evening. My name is Tim Andrews, your moderator. Thank you for joining Congressman Fred Keller's live telephone town hall. During tonight's discussion, Congressman Keller will provide an update on legislative priorities and bills introduced this Congress. Now, remember, this is an interactive event, and we would love to hear from you. If you'd like to ask a question of Congressman Keller at any point during this event, simply press *3 on your telephone keypad, and a member of our team will place you in queue to ask your question. If you're streaming this event online, you can simply type your name and question right below the streaming player. We will try to get to as many questions as possible this evening, but let's begin tonight's discussion with some opening remarks from Congressman Keller. Congressman?
Good evening. Thank you for joining us for our 10th telephone town hall meeting. As always, it's a top priority of me and my team to make sure we're listening and actively engaged with all of the people of Pennsylvania's 12th Congressional District. In the past 6 months, our team has traveled to every county in Pennsylvania's 12th Congressional District to hear about issues that are important to the outstanding people for which we work. These calls are a great way for our team to communicate, stay in touch, and keep everyone updated on the work that we are doing on your behalf. Before we begin with the questions, I'd just like to take a couple moments to let you know things that are being worked on. Legislation that we're working on is one which is near and dear to my heart because I know a lot of people across Pennsylvania's 12th Congressional District and across our great nation have served us so well. We had learned that our veterans were having trouble getting their needed documents to gain access to benefits that they had earned. So we had been in contact with the National Personnel Records Center that was shut during COVID-19 and is not fully reopened to this date. As many people in PA-12 have gone back to work, our veterans deserve a prompt response to their requests so that they can get the needed benefits they have earned. The National Records Center has about 500,000 backlogged requests, getting about 5,000 a day. And when we did not receive adequate response, we actually introduced the Records Act, which would require them to come up with a plan to promptly address the backlog and make sure that we don't have this situation happen again. Other legislation that we've introduced is the Nurses Care Act, which would help nurses assistants, TNAs, temporary nurse assistants, who gained experience during COVID-19, stepping up to care for many people in our communities, to be able to use that experience towards their certification for their CNA experience. So working with Representative Susan Wild on that bill. Also, just looking at what we're doing in addition to that is the Rural Help Act, which would help our hospitals get a shot at equitable funding compared to more urban areas. Our rural hospitals provide a lot of vital services, and we are looking to have the study done to see what the reimbursement rate should be for inpatient services at our rural hospital as compared to some of the urban centers. So those are a couple items that we're working on legislatively. We've also been very much working on educational items. We have some amendments to upcoming legislation. I was just at the Rules Committee today testifying on what we call a 90-10 rule when it comes to educational institutions and how much they can receive federal funding if they're proprietary or for-profit versus nonprofit. And our legislation aims to make sure that people can choose how to use their VA benefits when it comes to education and not have Congress telling them which educational institutions they can go to get their further their education at and which ones they cannot. So those are a few things that we're working on as far as legislation and other policies that we've been working on. has been, one, accountability in spending. We've seen an unprecedented pandemic. The American people have risen to the challenge, and Congress, during the original CARES Act, has appropriated the money that comes from the American people to help out our fellow citizens. And as we move forward, we should take a look at any kind of spending that we do, that it is very targeted and related to making sure that it benefits the people for which we work. Therefore, we need to take a look at the upcoming bills. Infrastructure will be coming up, and we want to make sure, as Leader McCarthy put it so well, that we properly define infrastructure. And in rural PA, that means roads, it means bridges, it means broadband internet access, it means energy pipelines. We look at that water and sewer infrastructure for rural America. Those are infrastructure things. And any discussion on any other programs should be dealt with separately from our infrastructure. So, because I'm ever mindful of the money that we spend as government comes from the American people. And in the case of the beginning of this year, the unprecedented spending we've seen, it's going to come from our kids and grandkids. So when we're looking at how much they're going to have to repay, we need to make sure that what we're doing is responsible, because I know there's a lot of concern that our kids and grandkids will have paying for their post-secondary education. I don't want them to have to struggle to pay for their elementary education. So those are some things. August work month is coming up, and we take a look at this month when we're not in Washington, D.C. in session as a period of when we're traveling around and have more opportunity to be in the district and see and talk to individuals, listen to what your priorities are, so that when we come back in September, we can make sure that your voice is heard here in D.C. and that we put those things into action. One thing that I'm really proud of in our 15 counties, and it began with our first county fair in Lycoming County, we will be visiting each of the county fairs to see the great work that our FFA and 4-H students do, along with all the other outstanding people that live and work in our communities. With that, what I'd like to do is turn the call over to our moderator and open it up for questions. And if you would like to ask a question, if you press *3 to be entered into the queue, I look forward to having a discussion with everyone directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. And also remember, if you're joining us online and you'd like to ask a question, you can simply type your name and your question right below the streaming player. And as the Congressman said, simply press *3 if you'd like to ask your question live. Congressman, we have a couple of online questions we're going to start with this evening. The first one comes from Alexis in Jersey Shore, and she writes, I filed my taxes in March, but haven't received my tax returns yet. What should I do?
Well, Alexis, I will say, one, thank you for the question, and I do, on behalf of the executive branch of the government, apologize that the Internal Revenue Service isn't being more prompt, making sure they get through these items. Much like we had issue with the Record Center, we're seeing the same things happen with Social Security offices and with the Internal Revenue Service, where people are not back to work fully, doing the work of the people of the United States. I would, you can actually go online and look at the status. If you've already done that and run into trouble with that, I would suggest, because each case may be individually a little different, if you go to keller.house.gov and send us a contact, we'll have a member of our team reach out to you and see what we can do to find out and get you information on the status of that. But the best thing that can happen is the president can order these federal agencies to get back to work and work on behalf of the people that pay their salaries, which is the folks of PA-12 and all across our great nation.
Our next online question comes from Eric in Newport, and Eric writes, I'm planning to travel in the fall, and I've heard that getting a passport is taking longer than usual. How long should I expect to wait?
Well, actually, I was looking at this, and from the information from the website run by the Department of State, travel.state.gov, and if you go through there, they're publishing a routine service can take up to 18 weeks. So again, more of this is getting people back to work and doing things. But I would say if you've looked online to get the information and have not been able to get a response, if you could again go to our website, keller.house.gov, and give us the information, we will make sure that if that we can try and help get the answers of where your documents might be. But I would say if you're planning travel and you know that it's going to be a little while out, and you need it, I would get the process started as soon as possible. And again, we're encouraging the people in these federal agencies to do what everybody in PA-12 is doing, and that is having to go back to work so that we can support our families and our communities.
Let's get to one of our first live callers this evening from Clinton County. Mary Ann Fry is on the line. Hi, Mary Ann. Thank you for holding. You're live with the Congressman.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is, I'm so disgusted with the Democratic Party. Believe it or not, years ago I was a Democrat, and that left when Obama ran because I didn't believe a word the man said, and I have several black friends. It's not that. He lied. Joe Biden lies constantly, and the whole Democratic Party. I feel terrible that they're trying to destroy our country, especially the left-wing group. And I'm worried. I voted for President Trump, and is there a chance that we'll get another president, whether it be Trump or one just like him, a businessman that knows how to run a country? And when are they ever going to start teaching the children in the school the real history of our beautiful country?
Well, Mary Ann, thank you for calling in this evening. The one thing I will say, and we do need to teach our kids the history and how exceptional it is to be an American citizen. When we look at it, I learned history, and while our history is not perfect, it is certainly the best history on the face of the earth when it comes to nations. And we have done more for humanity than any other country, and I think that's exemplified in the fact that so many people are trying to get into America. The one thing I guess I would ask you to do, and I know you might be frustrated with some people in elected office that you didn't agree with or you believe didn't tell you the truth. But I would caution on painting everybody with one broad stroke. I mean, I know there's a lot of good, hardworking people across PA-12. I would say, and I would just encourage everybody, to do your research and look at people's behavior, and that's who you should support. And I always used to say, as a private industry, past performance is an indication of future behavior. And I believe in being honest with everybody, and I think that I would just encourage you to look at the people that are whether it's your school board or anybody, and make the best decision of the person that shares your values, and look at where they stand in their behavior, and base your decisions that way. But I do appreciate your call.
Dennis Fox from Lycoming County is on the line right now, Congressman. Hi, Dennis. Go right ahead, sir.
Good evening, Congressman Keller.
Hi,
I have a question about Social Security. Last year when we received the Social Security increase, I believe it was around just under 2%, and then they took a percentage of that off in increase in Medicare. So we ended up with less than 1% increase. I would like to know how it is that the government justifies stealing the money from the Medicare fund and Social Security, and how people that are on Social Security are expected to survive on an average income of around $1,100 to $1,200 a month, especially given the current inflation. And going along with that, why can't some of the money that's being given to illegal immigrants be put back into the Social Security fund so that we can have a reasonable amount of money in our Social Security checks?
Dennis, thank you for the call, and also thank you for your work, because if you're receiving Social Security, you likely worked your entire life and paid into Social Security. And I know some people call Social Security an entitlement. No, it's something that you paid for and that you earned. You're a retired individual. You've worked your life. You've paid that money in. And I do agree with you. Rather than spending money and giving money to people whose first act was to break our laws to end our nation, is certainly not a priority of mine. Not that we shouldn't not help people, but we should help those people first who have paid into the system and who are American citizens. Because if we look at this, and you talked about inflation, the last numbers for June, 5.4% annual rate of increase, while Social Security recipients only got a 1.3% in 2021 on adjustment. I know oftentimes, Republicans get accused of wanting to cut Social Security, and that's not the case when I look at Social Security. Social Security has been cut because of inflation, because we shut down pipelines here in America, because we're making it hard for American energy companies to produce affordable energy, because of the policies of just spending and not having any production for that spending. I mean, if people aren't working, there's no Social Security tax being paid. And so there's a lot of things that we should work on, but I look at Social Security as something that you earned, you paid for. It's not an entitlement, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that our senior citizens and their Social Security is protected. And that includes from inflation, which means not having all this spending with not knowing where it's going to come from. And that's really where it is. I've been fiscally responsible in my own home, when I ran a business in private industry, and my votes in government are about fiscal responsibility and taking care of people. And you can do both those things. But to your point about giving money to people who came into our country and the first act was by breaking the law, we need to put our priorities with our seniors who've obeyed the law their entire life and make sure that they get what they earned.
Hi, Alfred from North Cumberland. Thank you for holding this evening. You're live with the Congressman, sir.
Yes, Congressman, thank you for your service. I have a question. I'm a retired police officer. What are they doing about MS-13? Are they shipping them guys back?
First off, I want to thank you for your service as a law enforcement officer, as police. And I want to thank all the people that put on a uniform in PA-12. Really appreciate that, and I often tell that. I was just talking to the sheriff in Snyder County today, and I said to him, I said, you often see people when you're not having a good day. And, I was down at the border, and I met some people when I went down to see the border and talk and have visits and listen to what American citizens were telling me. And Mrs. Johnson and her husband, whose family, the Johnson family, had ranched there for over 100 years. They said that the people that they're encountering at these ports of entry, the numbers that you're getting, aren't the ones that are being trafficked at the more desolate parts of the border. Our Border Patrol are being overwhelmed at the ports of entry so that these cartels can take people across in more desolate areas and get them into our country. So I would, looking at what's happening, I would say that it's potential that there's some people that are getting to our country that we don't know about. And right now, Oversight Reform has requested hearings on the border. We have been unsuccessful to get them because of the Speaker and the Democrats being in charge of Congress. But those are questions that the Republicans on the committee are asking every day. And I would say that there's a chance that we have people in our country that aren't here to do the best things. Most of them are good people, but we even saw that Customs and Border Patrol said that people were coming into our nation that were on a terror watch list. So I would think that we need a reversal in policy to put the Remain in Mexico, finish the wall, and Title 42 with the making sure people aren't coming in to have COVID. So I have concerns that we don't know who all is coming into our country, and quite frankly, it was mentioned by the Border Patrol agents that I rode with. When you look at who's coming in, we don't know. These people are being released into the interior of the country with just a date to appear in court. It's really, and that's not coming from me. That's coming from the Border Patrol agents that are doing a job every day of the week.
Up next, from Senator County, Chuck Ray is on the line. And Chuck, you're live with the Congressman. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Congressman Keller. I appreciate you having our show and appreciate getting the chance to ask you a question.
Hi, Chuck.
Congressman, I really am concerned and baffled by this mandatory vaccination program that seems to be getting rolled out all over the country. I don't have any problem with people getting the vaccination, but I don't understand in America how people can be forced to get something that they don't believe in, or even to go against the science. Those of us who've had COVID and have natural antibodies, the Cleveland Clinic proved and stated that we should not be getting the vaccination. But today, the federal government announced that all the people working for the VA are going to be required to get vaccinated, which includes my son who works at the VA in Pittsburgh. And, I can't imagine that the VA is but the beginning of this. They'll go on to all the other federal agencies, then it'll be contractors and so on and so forth. What are you going to do about this? I can't believe that the Republicans are staying quiet about this.
Chuck, thanks for the question. And actually, the Republicans have not been quiet on this issue, and we've done a lot with Whip Scalise and his select committee on the coronavirus. The one thing I would say is, and I want to make sure that we're clear on this, the approval for this vaccine is temporary from the federal government. It's not permanent. It's temporary. For temporary use, it's been approved. And if people want to be vaccinated, by all means, vaccines are available, and they should be able to get those. And we've passed laws to allow people to get those and not be charged for them. However, if somebody's been vaccinated and somebody chooses not to be vaccinated, based upon the science, people should not be concerned if they've been protected by the vaccine. And in the United States of America, they should not be coerced or forced to take a vaccine against their will. So I agree with you. I just would say that there's been a lot of work, and we've brought a lot of things to light with Whip Scalise and the task force on COVID-19. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get enough votes for legislation regarding some of these issues. We even want to have an investigation. We've been pushing the Speaker to have an investigation on the origins of COVID-19 and why the World Health Organization covered for the Chinese Communist Party. And we have been unable yet to get those. I'm hopeful that the American people will speak to all their elected officials in the 435 districts across our great nation, and other members of Congress will do the same as I've done. and request that the Speaker do this. And I think once she has enough people telling her to do that, I'm hopeful she'll bring it up, and we'll actually get something resolved here and make sure that people aren't in America forced to take medicine that they don't want to.
If you'd like to ask a question this evening of the Congressman live and you're joining us via telephone, you can simply press *3 on your telephone keypad, and that'll put you in touch with a member of our team. They'll place you in queue. And if you're joining us online, you can simply type your question and your name right below the streaming player. Congressman, let's go to another one of our online questions. This one comes from Michael from South Williamsport. Not really a question, it's more of a request. Michael writes, please support President Biden's budget proposal, specifically the pieces that will help us invest in renewable sources of energy.
Michael, I thank you for the comment, and I'll just give you a little bit of background on how I've supported energy all along. There is a place for an all-of-the-above energy strategy, which means natural gas, coal, clean coal, wind, solar. In fact, I helped in Pennsylvania with some solar legislation to help our farmers who put solar installations on their farms. So my record of being all-inclusive and having a diverse energy portfolio has been what I said. And as I mentioned before, past performance will indicate future behavior. And my performance is that I do support natural gas. On any given day, up to 10% of the nation's dry natural gas comes out of PA-12. And that's huge for our national security. It's huge for our economy. And it makes sure, because we just talked to Dennis, who was concerned about his Social Security and inflation and other things. And I tell you what, the abundance of natural gas in our nation, and particularly in PA-12, has helped lower energy costs for Pennsylvanians, about $1,100 a year for the average Pennsylvania family, because of the abundance of natural gas. So I think we need to have an all-inclusive energy portfolio, and that will mean jobs. That will also mean low-cost fuel for people, for their cars, for their homes, for their businesses, and it'll mean a strong America. But we shouldn't be shutting down pipelines in America while we're allowing Russia to build pipelines to move natural gas and other fuels around the globe, transferring wealth from our allies to countries who do not share our values. So President Biden's budget proposal, as I mentioned earlier, has a lot of spending in it. And there's going to be a lot of things that we have to take a look at there. As I mentioned, I want to make sure that the spending we're doing is targeted, does what it's intended to do, and isn't putting our kids at greater risk to have to pay for their grade school debt when they graduate from high school and/or college.
Let's go back to some live callers this evening. Congressman from Mifflin County, we have Lucinda Swartz on the line. Yes, ma'am, you're live. Go right ahead.
Yes, hello. I want to thank you for your help your office gave me last year. They were very friendly and helped me a lot. But I'm just really concerned with this critical race theory that they want to teach in the schools mostly because of my grandchildren. And I want to know how you feel on that.
Well, Lucinda, thanks for calling in. Thanks for your question. I believe the history of the United States of America is great. Are there some things that we did that we corrected? Absolutely. But we as the United States of America did that, and we have a diverse population, and we need to be talking about the things that unite us and make us an exceptional nation. So I do not support any kind of critical race theory, and I know there's some amendments to the upcoming bills this week that will say that we shouldn't be funding schools that are teaching critical race theory. I know when I was in high school, back in the late 70s and early 80s, we learned about America, and we learned about all of our history, from before the founding of our nation to the Europeans that came over, the founding of our nation, the Civil War, and all our World War I, World War II, and all the things that Americans have done when people have been oppressed, and what we've done to help them and have freedom and look at everybody the same. And I think I think we need to be teaching our entire history, but we need to be teaching our kids how exceptional it is to live in the United States of America. The people in Cuba, they're not carrying Swiss flags down there, they're carrying American flags because they realize what that flag stands for. And I have a lot of friends that realize that too, and that's what we need to be teaching. And but I would say this: your education comes down to your local school boards, and it's very important that you make sure that you're engaged with the people that run your local schools. So I appreciate the call, and any federal money that is coming out, I'm sure there will be amendments to the bills to make sure that gets used to educate our children on what makes America great as we look at us together and not things that divide us.
Our next call comes from Perry. We have Francine Palm on the line. Hi, thank you for your patience, Francine. Go right ahead.
Yes, I have a couple things. I know. One is with the new budget that I think it was $1.9 trillion. I saw a little bit of how it's going to help seniors. Do you have any idea how that money will be used to help seniors? Because I see a huge problem with our senior citizens. You have, of course, the nursing home through coronavirus. I took care of my grandmother here, and it was really hard getting caregivers to come out to the home and help out. And the second thing is with the vaccine, I cannot justify getting vaccinated. I know everybody has their own opinion about it, but why would we leave all these people across our border illegally without testing them, without requiring them to get a vaccine, yet we are being asked to get the vaccine?
Francine, thanks for your call. I'll address the last part first. And there was that was already put in place, and the Biden administration actually has rolled back the requirements that the Trump administration had with I believe it was Act 42. But making sure that people were not coming in here that were COVID positive. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say to help seniors, the Nurses Care Act is one item that would be helpful to make sure that we have enough people available for care for our seniors and people that need it. The other thing, the $1.9 trillion, which was what they call the American Rescue Plan, which sent out more checks. It also there's a lot of people who have dependent children that just got more checks in the mail this July. And again, if people need help, we need to take a look at that. But just a broad stroke of mailing money from the federal treasury out to people actually probably puts in jeopardy more of the safety net programs for seniors like Medicaid and Medicare and then actually Medicare you pay for. You have the Medicare tax on your check when you work. But then also your Social Security, because we've got to look at where all the money's being spent. And the way to making sure that we have the available resources to care for the people who most need it, our kids and our seniors, are to make sure that we incentivize work. And that's one thing that I've been working on, and also making sure that if people that need help, I'm all about that. But the people that are able to work, we need to make sure that we're incentivizing that. And I don't fault anybody that might be looking at the policies that were set up under this legislation and using those policies to their benefit. I fault the people that set the policies up, because that's it. I mean, people are very thoughtful, smart, hardworking people, but when they're making these decisions, they're taking a look at everything just like everybody does when they fill out their income tax form. So I don't fault the people. I fault the policymakers that set it up. And I saw a lot of issues with those policies that, as I mentioned, by us spending all this money, it puts more in danger your Medicaid, your Medicare, your Social Security checks, and also is going to be putting debt on top of our kids. So I think the way we help is the Nurses Care Act, to have more people available, and also to watch where we're spending our money, and to a couple points that have been made to make sure that people that their first act of coming into our country aren't taking resources away from our senior citizens and our children.
Our next caller comes from Sullivan. Linda Blanchard Stokes is on the line. Thank you for holding and waiting for the Congressman. You're live, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for taking my call.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. I have a small problem that I have been dealing with for quite some time, and my father even longer. My dad is a merchant marine. He served from 1945 to 1948. And at the time when he was trying to get his military records, they were telling they couldn't find them. And what searching they did do for him, they said that the facilities where his military records were, and so many other servicemen, it burned. And I think there's got to be some other way. My father can't get anything through the VA as far as medical care because there's no records. And I've noticed even going into an AMVETS club or places like that, he's not even recognized as a merchant marine because they don't even have merchant marine flags anymore. So, I mean, that's a little bit of another insult. So,
Linda, I apologize that you're having trouble for your father's records and so forth, and I want to thank you and him for his service. My dad was a Korean War veteran. My brother was in the Army for 29 years, and we have many that have served our great nation, and they're outstanding individuals. I would ask this, and I don't know if you're able to, but if you could contact our office. We actually have two veterans that work on our team that deal with helping veterans with their any kind of veterans issue they're having or even their service records. So I guess if I could ask you, Linda, if you could please contact our office if you're in Sullivan County, either Williamsport or Tunkhannock. We'd be more than happy to set up an appointment and see what we can facilitate.
If you'd like to ask a question of the Congressman this evening, simply press *3 on your telephone keypad, or if you're joining us online, you can type your name and question right below the streaming player. Our next call comes from Union. Rick Thomas has been holding for you, sir. Go right ahead.
All right. Thank you, Congressman Keller.
Hi, Rick.
My question, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing? How are things in Lewisburg?
It's going, it's tough. Basically, that's what my question comes down to is, as a small business owner, a restaurant owner, we're having a difficult time getting employees. Nobody is applying, period. We've been told, oh, we'll offer more money. Well, if we're not getting applicants, we can't even offer them money. I'm seeing not just my business, but other downtown ones in Lewisburg in the same struggle. I've seen our local franchises closing at 8 o'clock due to lack of staff. And, we're in the same boat. We keep having to cut hours, which therefore, cuts into us being able to provide and make an income.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out what we can do.
Well, Rick, one, thanks for the call, and thanks for having a business. I mean, you're the face of our small businesses, and I know a lot of times my colleagues like to not they say businesses and this and that, but you're our businesses, and I remind them that the businesses across America are our family, our friends, our neighbors, and they employ our family, friends, and neighbors. And I just want to say thank you to you and all the people, not only that own businesses, but work in those businesses, because you're what make our communities a success. I will say that the additional unemployment expires in September, and I do know in Pennsylvania, the governor said that the work search requirement was put back in place for people to look for work. Now, how that's being enforced and administered, that would be up to the state. But I think the best thing we can do is continue policies that incentivize people to get back to work. And again, I don't fault the people, I fault the policymakers that keep extending this and that aren't getting people back into their employment. Again, people are outstanding, they're hardworking, and to pay more money. And I heard our governor say that a couple times. And the only thing I would say to that is I often quote Henry Ford when it comes to that, and it says the employers don't pay the wages, the consumers do. The employer just handles the money. The business just handles the money. And I think that's so important to remember, because the businesses across PA12, across Pennsylvania, across our nation are by and large made out of outstanding people, and the ones that don't do things right, they get held accountable because they don't get people there. So I would say we need to continue policies that don't incentivize people to make a different choice, and we need to make sure the best stimulus is a job, and we need to incentivize people to get back into the workforce so that our communities have our small businesses have the labor force to be able to make us all successful.
Up next from Mifflin County, we have Wendell Miller on the line. Hi, Wendell. Thank you for calling in this evening.
Yes, thank you, Congressman Keller. I have two questions. I'm a big Second Amendment supporter, and there's a lot of hunters around here, and we can't find any ammo for our guns. You go to Walmart or different sportsman shows, and nobody has any ammo. That's one question. And the second question is robocalls. We get so many robocalls that it just makes your head spin. There's two items there that it's really important in this area. So maybe you can confront them.
Hi, Wendell. Let's take the robocalls. We'll do that part first. There is some legislation and things on that, and also looking at it dealt with phone numbers that were no longer in use and so on. But I think that's a matter of how we hold accountable, and we're working on this, and we'll continue to do it, holding accountable the companies that manage the phone numbers to make sure that gets addressed. And actually I've heard that in the past. Unfortunately, some of these are coming from outside the United States where they do this, and we're looking at how we do that. And there's one called the Stop Bad Robocalls Act, and as that moves forward, I'll make sure that the people are updated either in newsletters, through press releases, or on our telephone town hall. So we are working on that. On the Second Amendment, I am a big believer in in our Constitution and the Second Amendment, and I do know that sometimes it is hard to find ammunition. I've experienced that myself sometimes. I do know there's places that in Pennsylvania you can search online and look for businesses that might have it to sell. That I think some of the ammunition part is people were probably stocking up on it over the past several months. I would be optimistic that as people have stocked up on it, more would become available. It'll be sort of the free market supply and demand coming into play, so that people aren't paying exorbitant prices for ammunition. But I do know it's still being produced. Because I've seen it for sale at different places. I know some places have just put a limit on how much you can buy, but I'm optimistic that once that market is saturated, we'll see more availability.
Up next from Bradford, we have a lot of calls coming in this evening, Congressman. This one comes from Bradford. Kenneth Cook is on the line. Hi, Kenneth.
Hi. I'm old enough to remember the rationing and stuff in the Second World War, and all of us patriots or families, we went along with it because we knew we were addressing the enemy and helping to defeat them. We're in a similar situation right now. China is our avowed enemy, and every time we buy something made in China, we're aiding and abetting the enemy. Why doesn't the congressmen and senators nationally call for a national boycott of anything made in China and start buying American, even if it costs us a little more? That would be our patriotic sacrifice. We sacrificed Second World War. Let's do it now. Let's cripple the enemy, because they used everything we buy over there. They use the profit to fund their military.
Kenneth, I appreciate the call, And I was going through some things over the past week, and I came across my grandfather's World War II ration stamps. So when you talk about that, he had some of those left over, and I think it is decisions that we make as Americans, and I think it's things that we looked at happening under the previous administration, bringing supply chains back into the United States, and we need to do everything we can to get these supply chains away from China. And one thing that we need to do is we need to look at our policy, and I know we've talked about forms of energy. There aren't solar panels. I mean, a lot of those critical minerals that are used in the production of solar panels are controlled by China, the vast majority of them. So I think we need to be very careful, very strategic, and bring those supply chains back to the United States and set up policies that do exactly that, so that we're not sending, to your point, money and wealth over to nations that don't share our interests. And that goes with energy, that goes with goods that we purchase. But I agree with you. We need to get those supply chains home, and the policies that are put in place in America. In fact, I had a bill to the National Defense Authorization Act in 2019, Don't Buy from the Bad Guys, that actually dealt with tungsten, global tungsten and powders up in Bradford County. We looked at that. It made sense that we weren't relying on China and other adversaries for tungsten. So we did that with some legislation when it meant the federal government. I think we should all continue looking at bringing these supply chains home and incentivizing that kind of behavior.
We're going to go back to some of our online questions here. This one, more of a comment from Gary from State College. He writes, "We should not, in all capital letters, extend the debt ceiling. The federal government has spent way too much money."
Well, Gary, thank you. And I look at that. The debt ceiling was suspended for 2 years back in 2019. In fact, that is something I did not support. I believe that if the U.S. government and Congress and the President want to spend money, we should have to go before the people we represent and explain exactly why we want to put them farther in debt. It better be for good purposes. It better be, and I look at this, and I voted against the budget in 2019 because at that point in time things were going along really well. Yet, and we had seen unprecedented revenue after the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. We saw more revenue to the federal government, and when things were going so well, we didn't restrain any of our spending. So, I agree with you, Gary. We need to be very careful with the debt ceiling and what that means. The Congressional Budget Office in 2019 had mentioned if we did nothing different at that point, by the year 2025, we would be paying more in debt service than we did defense. So I think we have a real problem, and it's not a revenue problem. We take enough money from the American people. It's a spending problem, and we need to take a look at these government agencies and make sure that they're responsible with the money that we take from the American people to run the federal government.
Let's go back to the phones, back to Center County. Jody's on the line. Jody, with some real concerns there. Hi, Jody. Go right ahead.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Congressman. I have a couple questions I wanted to ask.
Jody?
One question being, if Governor Wolf decides to shut us back down, what are the Republicans going to do to keep that from happening? My second question is if the schools, the high schools and local schools decide that they're going to go mandating vaccines, how are you going to protect our kids those that are against it? And then my third question is what is going on with the Veterans Burn Pit Exposure Recognition Act of 2021?
Well, let me start with the first one on the veterans, and say that we are definitely in Congress looking at what we can do to make sure that our veterans are protected and get what if they're harmed from any of that, and it's not just that, but it's other sites across the country when you're talking about PFAS and PFOA and different things. So believe me, on the veterans issues, we're definitely looking at legislation to make sure the veterans, one, get the care they need, but two, that we don't repeat the same things that create problems for the people that serve us every day. On the shot mandates from schools, I would look to that the schools that get the funding from the state, but a lot of the schools are run by your school boards, and I hate to say that, but you don't want us running your schools from Washington D.C. That's a local issue, and I would say to be proactive and be with the school boards and let them know, because I'll tell you, your school board's about 9 people, right? It's a lot easier to go to 9 people and make sure they understand how the public feels that funds that school, and what is important and what isn't. I would say on the governor shutting down, I know the legislature in Pennsylvania did a lot of things. I mean, Pennsylvania is a sovereign state, and the governor's elected, but there were some things on the ballot, questions on the ballot regarding shutdowns and so on, and the people of Pennsylvania spoke up pretty clearly, so I think it'll probably be a little more difficult for the governor to try and do that, but I look at the legislature being pretty proactive when it comes to making sure the governor doesn't go it alone like he did the last time he shut down the Commonwealth.
Congressman, I know this may surprise you, but time flies when we have so many questions coming in, and that's all the time we have this evening for this portion of the question and answer period. But we want to thank everybody for participating this evening. And if we didn't get a chance to answer your specific question, or if you have additional thoughts, or if you'd like to sign up for important updates, just visit Congressman Keller's website at keller.house.gov. Additionally, you can keep up with Congressman Keller on Facebook at Congressman Fred Keller, and Twitter is at Rep. Fred Keller. Congressman, I'm going to leave it to you to close out this evening's event. I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you. I appreciate your help with this evening. Just in closing, I would like to thank everybody that joined us in participating in tonight's call. If you didn't get an answer to your question, please feel free to contact us by going to keller.house.gov. I look forward to the month of August when it's the work month for Congress. In the district. I'm looking forward to encountering as many people across PA-12 as we can to learn from you what your priorities are so that we can put those into action for you here in Washington, D.C. With that, I wish everybody a very good evening. Good night.